Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the title may be provocative, but before going in the content of my presentation, just to emphasize the fact that, as it has been said, broadband is a huge success. Has been a huge success for the last 10 years, changing the way the people entertain, the way they communicate, the way it has changed totally their daily life. One can consider that everything is going very well in the broadband world. There are some countries that are heavily investing, but there's no major issue, let's say. And through my presentation, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that there are some major issues ahead of us. And if we don't tackle them properly, we may be in trouble. Among these disruptive changes in the broadband world, there are mainly the fact that today in some regions around the world, some investments are happening, but there's generally a lack of investment in order to upgrade the networks, totally or partially. As you may know, today, the amount of data that is flowing through the networks is increasing dramatically. We need to change the technologies. Generally, we think mainly about the access technologies. We have talked about fiber, we have talked about 4G or 3G, but actually the increase of data is putting pressure on the whole network and not only the access networks. The backhaul networks, the transport networks, the core networks are being put under pressure and need a huge investment as well. And when these investments are needed, we are at the end of a cycle that took 60 years. It was voice-centric. It was TDM technology, for those of you who know it. We are going to a data-driven network universe and based on IP technology. So the change is massive, and the need for investment is massive. But at the same time, our customers for Alcatel-Lucent, which are operators, they are very keen on monetizing voice. But when it comes to a data world, there are lots of uncertainties. And the question now, the challenge is how to find a way to finance these new needs for network upgrade. At the same time that the voice-centric model is losing its, let's say, its relevance, at the same time you see that the value chain in our business is changing. There are new actors that have emerged in the last 5 to 6 years, mainly what we call the over-the-top players. And they are now generating a lot of traffic. They are growing very fast, and they are catching a growing part of the value chain compared to what the traditional operators can take out from the value chain. So this business model is also changing and challenging. Regarding the relationship between the over-the-top players and our legacy customers, there are discussions ongoing, but basically they need to shift from a model based on the best effort to a model based on quality of service and quality of experience for end user. For that, they need to conclude protocols in order to change, let's say, the paradigm of the best effort. And to be able to differentiate between services depending on the services need regarding latency, regarding jitter or security, for instance. But at the same time, these discussions between the OTTs and the operators, they are being somehow impacted, or there are a lot of interference coming from the need for net neutrality. In other words, can an operator conclude an agreement with an over-the-top without benefiting the over-the-tops from the same conditions? This is the net neutrality debate and the ability for an operator to leverage this access market power towards an OTT player. The debate is not yet concluded, but in a nutshell, there are three main requirements for operators to comply with net neutrality. Is the absence of discrimination and the transparency regarding mainly traffic management. The revenue, as I told you, there is a shift in the value chain. Today, the over-the-tops are grabbing the most significant part of the revenue increase from the end users, and network operators are now trying to climb, to have more control of this value chain and to be able to monetize mainly the services, the segmentation of experiences that end users are willing to pay for, and make some kind of shift between the best effort and the quality of experience services. In this global context, what policymakers are today doing? Mainly, their main focus is on how to expand the network footprints, to increase the coverage, of course, to increase speeds and openness of the network as well, and at the same time making sure that there's no digital divide between the major urban city areas and the rural areas. And to that end, many governments around the world are planning some kind of NBN-like projects. Here in Qatar, you know that it's very advanced, in Australia, New Zealand as well. And in some South American countries, they are also considering the possibility in going in this direction. And basically, you have three levels of intervention for governments: at country level, of course, regional level, or focusing on more on rural areas. Given this trend in government intervention, what can we see today as the prevailing models or industry structure in the three main regions of the world? In the Americas, and I'm mainly talking about the United States, they have a very prevalent model which is based on a totally vertically integrated operator. So you have several operators competing in the telecommunication world and in the cable, with the cable companies. And today, broadband is mainly private-driven. It's business-driven, no state intervention, unless in very specific rural areas. In South America, there may be different approaches, more based on some kind of open access networks based mainly on wireless. At the opposite, in Asia Pacific, you see that the government intervention is really leading the network transformation with the projects I mentioned. We can also mention Singapore, and we can also mention in India the project of having a huge open access backbone network, optical network, to connect all the whole country. And in the middle, Europe, that is today hesitating between the two models, the vertical integration and the service-based competition model. And I will talk a little bit more later on about the Nelly Kroes initiative to try to solve this dilemma. Still have 5 minutes. What are our vision as Alcatel-Lucent for taking into account the data exafloat, the shift in the value chain, the competition models that are changing? What is needed for the two main access networks technologies? For the fixed network, you have been extensively discussing about fiber to the home connections here. We have a real focus on the need to share what we call the layer one, the passive layer of the network. Mainly it's a duct and the last drop, the fiber, dark fibers as well. And we think that it's the basic layer that needs to be shared in order to foster competition, not only, but also to reduce the cost of the network rollout. And you may remember that it's around 80% of a fiber network rollout, it's civil works. And we think that the more we can share this passive investment, the more we'll be able to invest in the active equipment that is a key for differentiation in services. However, in some countries, Australia for instance, they will not share only the layer 1, the passive, that they will share also what we call layer 2, the active equipments. So in some countries, and it will be more based on bitstream wholesale models. In some countries may be relevant, in others not. It will depend. This is for the fixed. For the mobile networks, we definitely think that we need to shift the paradigm. For a long time, the regulators used to distribute the spectrum to a wide range of players in order for them to compete and to be able to, through competition, increase the country coverage. Now, in most of the country, the mobile coverage is 100%, and we definitely think that for spectrum allocation for 4G, we should consider allocating big chunks of spectrum to single operators in order to have this access network, radio access network, shared, because you know very well that LTE requires a wider band channels. And we think that having 3 or 4 wireless networks deployed in parallel, it's really totally useless, taking into account that today coverage is really, the coverage is 100% of the country. But much more important than having a single network covering the whole country, we definitely think that the new technologies, wireless technologies, will require much more backhauling, because not only because the need for backhauling 4G cells requires much higher speeds, but moreover because we believe that the network topology will change and will be somehow more distributed and using, for instance, femtocells. And to backhaul a femtocell, the best way is to use a fiber link. This is the end. This is my last slide. This is a slide about a major initiative that was launched in Europe by Mérigoux a couple of months ago. Just to illustrate the fact that there are market trends in the broadband world, but there are also policy trends. And now governments and policymakers, they have realized that the evolution of broadband and the solution for the broadband problems cannot be left only to the industry, but must be solved with the industry. That's why Mérigoux, the European Commissioner for ICT, have gathered around 70 CEOs. 3 of them are leading the initiative. It's the CEO from Deutsche Telekom, from Vivendi, and from Alcatel-Lucent, Ben Verweyen, in order to try to find innovating and disruptive solutions in order to allow Europe to reach very ambitious targets that have been set. They call the digital agenda of having a universal service at 30 megabits in 2020, and at the same time, more than half of the Europeans being connected through a 100 megabits connection. And so this illustrates the need to work closely, the need for the industry and the governments to work closely in order to find solutions to the main turbulences that I've tried to describe. Thank you very much.